All right, so I'm live with Assimilate AWS by Coding, and today I'm going to dive into how to use uh, some of the stuff with Bash and explore different environments to code for AWS. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started here by first going over to GitHub and sharing my screen. So let's go ahead and do that first. Let's go here. And we'll do this, make this a little bit bigger. There we go. This looks about right. Move this over a little bit. Okay, perfect. So the first thing I'm going to start off with is diving into a repo that I have that is involved with AWS. And a few things that are important to consider here is if you are dealing with AWS, that one of the things to consider is, do you have the secrets, right? Do you have the secrets set up inside of here? And in this case, we can see that in fact I do have my AWS secrets set up. So that's step one. And then the next thing to consider is if you are using a GitHub Codespaces based environment, which I'm a huge fan of, then that you actually go through here and configure it so that it's set up the way you want. And I've already got that set up. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this thing. And a few things that are important to consider as well is that if you use the pre-built spaces, and this says restarting may fix it. Let's go ahead and launch it again here. Hopefully everything is back. But basically pre-built AWS environments can really speed things up. I'm sorry, pre-built Codespace environments can really speed things up because they allow you to build out code, or your code space can start in a very quick way. There we go. So we're back. I'm all ready to go here. And in a nutshell, I also have the AWS tools installed in this particular environment. And so if I type in AWS S3, for example, look, we can actually run commands remotely like S3 LS. So this is the cloud-based environment, and a few things to be aware of here is that what if I wanted to compare it against an AWS specific environment? What are some of the things that I would need to pay attention to? Well, let's try it out. The two that I would recommend would be Cloudshell and also Cloud9. So let's go ahead and let's put what we're going to do today. So session 4, we're going to talk about cloud environments. And these would include GitHub Codespaces. It would also include Cloud9 and Cloudshell. We're also going to talk about containers and Bash. Containers and Bash. And so the goal would be, by the end of today, can we build a container that has a Bash tool of some kind that we could do something with? So let's say the goal would be build a Bash CLI inside of a container. So we understand how that actually works. So first up, I'll just really briefly show the AWS platform. And if I go to the console, I can log in and get into authentication here. Now, it is interesting that once you've got GitHub Codespaces set up, it does ask the question, do I even need to log into Cloudspaces? And in some sense, you don't, right? Because of the fact that you are already in a cloud environment. But I'm going to first show you the Cloudshell. If I go ahead and click on this Cloudshell, what is it? Well, so basically it's a cloud-based environment that you can use to run commands. And now I can also configure this thing, if I remember correctly, to have different colors and all kinds of stuff. So we don't have to use a white background. We could use a dark background. I mean, that's one thing you can do. I'm also going to open up another tab here, and I'm also going to compare against Cloud9. So if I go through here and I say Cloud9, there we go, click on this. And in Cloud9, the thing to remember is if we go through here and we create a new environment, we can call this, AWS big image, something like that. And we can put a description that says something about it, like this, or we can call this container, AWS build container. How about that? Build container. Because I like to use bigger machines if I'm building containers. This is a Cloud9 for building containers. There we go. Now, what I would recommend would be to pick something that's pretty beefy if you have the credits or resources for it. So if I scroll down here, let's just grab one that's pretty big, like got a decent amount of RAM, like at least 8 core, 32 gigs of RAM. How about that? M5 2x large, or yeah, let's do that one. M5 2x large. Perfect. And I'm going to use Amazon Linux, and I'm going to go ahead and say next step. And we'll go ahead and say create environment. So now I've got 3 environments. I've got cloud, the GitHub Codespaces environment. I've got the Cloudshell environment, and I've got a Cloud9 environment. And in fact, we can make all 3 of these work together with containers. That's one of the cool things that you can do with containers. So I would say the first thing to be aware of here is that in terms of the Cloudshell itself, that the reason someone would use a Cloudshell is so that they can execute commands. You can see this. It's AWS command. Because I'm logged in as a user that has ability to make commands, I can do the same thing. I can type in AWS S3 ls. So any command on AWS that I want to run, I can actually do it directly from inside of this Cloudshell based environment. And so it's a great place to kind of kick tires a little bit and figure out what's going on. And if I say df-h, you can see here that I've got, I believe, at least it says available. It says used 11 gig, available 18 gigs. So I think I have up to 18 gigs that I can use in order to put stuff inside of this particular environment. Now you can even upload things inside of here, which is kind of cool. So if I go through here and I go to my something inside of here, for example, I say, how about this command line tool, S3 Manager, which I think is kind of a fun little command line tool. What I could do is I could download this. So I could say download. Yep. And then if I go here, I can go to, is it up right click? No, it's under action, upload file, right? So I can go upload file, and I could just upload a file directly inside of this environment as well. So you can, if you want, just use this to put little scripts inside of your Cloudshell environment. And it is free, in fact, the Cloudshell environment to use. So it's a nice little location to play around with things. Now, I believe it does come with Boto 3, but I'm not 100% sure. Let's check it out. So if I type in Python 3 here, if I say import Boto 3, does it come installed? Yeah, so it does come with Boto 3 installed. So what that means is that you could just immediately start typing in commands, making making API calls to the AWS platform, which is pretty nice. Or if I wanted to, I could set up a Python virtual environment and even start developing directly inside of this environment. One of the ways that you could do that is by actually, creating a Python virtual environment, sourcing it, and then adding it to your Bash RC. Let's go ahead and do that. So if I go ahead and I say Python 3 -m venv, does this work? Let's go ahead and create one. It looks like it does. And now what I could do is I could just add this to my Bash RC. So if I say echo source tilde/.venv, then activate, and we just do this Bash RC. If we do this, this will write that file directly into the last line of the bash RC. And now if I just source it, every future shell should have a virtual environment. I think source tilde bin activate tilde bash RC. At least it should have. Not sure why that didn't work. Let's go ahead and look at it. Maybe I screwed something up here. Well, for whatever reason, it didn't write it in there. I'll just type in source tilde dot env bin activate. I think I wrote the echo command wrong. It happened. But now if I source it, there we go. We have the Python virtual environment, and then I could actually just install things, right? I could just say pip install IPython. It looks like we can upgrade pip as well. So we could even do this. We could say pip install upgrade pip. And did that work? Perfect. And if I want to install tools like click, if I said pip install click, then what that means is I could actually install that tool that I downloaded earlier. So if I type in Python S3 manager to help, it should work. There we go. And now I could actually just use scripts inside of here that finds empty buckets, for example. And in theory, this should run pretty quick because it's in the same data center as where my buckets live. And so you have this really great way of interacting with things remotely. So this is a perfect environment to run bash commands, Python commands. It really is an ideal environment to run different things. So one of the things that I'll build that's kind of fun is if I go to GitHub, I think I had a bash script that was kind of cool. If I look at the AWS, for the AWS book that I wrote recently, that I had some cool bash stuff in here that I was going to reuse. And let's see here, utils, build spec. Let's look at all the different .NET things that I had. If I can't find it easily, here we go. This is what I was looking at. So if I wanted to build a for loop inside of bash right here, I could declare a variable of the different Cloud9 environments, and I could say, look, let's describe all the Cloud9 environments. So I guess the first thing I'd want to do is type in AWS Cloud9 to see if I can actually find out more information about Cloud9. AWS Cloud9. It's going to say it requires an operation. Well, let's ask for help. And hopefully it lets me like list, if I want to list the different Cloud9 environments, list environments. That's what I want to do. List all the Cloud9 environments. There should only be 2, if I remember correctly. But if I go through here and I say list environments, list environments. It wants me to do that. List environments. It should show me that environments. Show me that in fact there's only 2, right? So it found 2 different cloud environments, and as a result, if I wanted to find out more information, like what these Cloud9 environments are called, like in this case, right, I built this Cloud9 environment. Remember, I put some metadata associated with it. So what I could do is I could use that script that I wrote earlier, which is this script, and we can just paste this inside of our Cloudshell environment. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say touch describe Cloud9, and this will be a bash script, and I can just use VI to actually edit it. So I'll just say set paste, and we'll go ahead and we'll paste this in here, and let's take a look at what it's going to do. So it's going to, it is kind of annoying that it's that color. I want to go to dark, and I don't know. I mean, sure, we can do safe paste. There we go. That's a little bit better to read. Now, the difference here is that I don't want these. I don't want these inside of here. So I'm gonna actually delete these. I only want 2 of them, and I need to find out what those are actually, because I'm gonna have to list the environments so I can get them. So I'm gonna need to take these 2 things, and I'm gonna put them inside of my script. So go here, and let's just put them up here to begin with. There we go. So I need to swap out this one for this one. So we'll go here, we'll delete this. I guess we'll start at the bottom first, and we'll make this one go. So we'll paste that in. That looks correct. And then we'll go up here, we'll delete this one, and we'll paste this environment. So this is going to give us information about 2 environments. And the next one would be this one. There we go. Perfect. And then if I go up here and delete that. So really simple script, but basically it declares a hash, right? So it's like a key value pair that has 2 different Cloud9 environments, and it loops through them, and it echoes out information about those particular environments. And it doesn't do much, right? It's basically running this command, describe environments, and then describes those environments. So if we go through here and we save it, we can just type in bash describe Cloud9, and it should give us information. There we go. We have the first one. It says this is a Cloud9 for building containers, and then I don't know if it has any information about the other one. So the other one may not have any information about it, but it did give us information about the second one, because I put some information in there. And I think it even tells us the ID of the environments, the ARN, the connection type, et cetera, et cetera. All kinds of useful information for us. So that's kind of the purpose of building things out using a bash script. Now, where things get really interesting is if we shift over to this AWS environment, is if we instead want to build out a container. And I think that's where things get a little bit more interesting. And so what we can do is we can actually resize this particular environment so that it can be a little bit more useful. And so in order to do that, what we should do is we should say resize Cloud9. And this is a typical problem, is that they give you a really small one. And here we go. Here's my friend, Cyrus Wong. He has a good script for us. We can just grab this and put this inside. And so I'm going to go ahead and grab his script here, and I'm going to run it, which basically resizes Cloud9 environment. And so this just makes the disk a little bit bigger. If we do df-h, we have a bigger environment to play around with, 50 gig disk. And now if I want to, I can play around with containers. And in this environment, it's a lot more like a regular development environment. But the big key differences are that you can actually use specialized tools for AWS. So if we look at this, see this, we have these good integrations with API Gateway, App Runner, CloudFormation, all kinds of great stuff inside of here. ECR as well. Like I could go through ECR and look, I could even right click and create a repository. Now, what is ECR? ECR is actually where I would want to push a container. So if I wanted to build a container that did something with AWS, this is where I would actually deal with it, is with ECR. And also I could look at buckets on S3. So it's got like really good integration here with AWS. That's why people potentially would want to use the AWS cloud development environment. Now, what I can do to fully integrate things is if I go through here and I say get remote-v, is I can actually link these environments together. And that's always, I think, a good idea is to link different cloud-based development environments together. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to say code, and I'm going to go to SSH, and I'm going to clone this environment in Cloud9. And this will let me be able to write data to it as well. So we'll say git clone this. It's going to ask me to create the keys, which is fine. So I have to create SSH keys. We'll say SSH keygen-t RSA. Save this. I've created an SSH key. Then I can actually print this out like that. And I can go ahead and go to my GitHub environment, go to my account, and go ahead and add inside of here a new SSH key. And we'll do that, and we'll just call this Cloud9. It'll ask me to authenticate, I believe. Oh, there we go. I've already authenticated, so I'm good. And now if I just do up arrow, should be able to get access to all the code that I wrote earlier. And then I can do the same thing I typically do, which is I say Python 3 -m venv tilde venv like that. And then go ahead and create a new environment. Perfect. Now I also will want to add this to my bash or C so I can use it over and over again. So we'll go ahead and do that. And to the bottom, source virtual environment. There we go. And now I open up a new shell. The new shell will also have actually, let's double check that I did that right. I didn't put in the source command. There we go. Source command like that. There we go. It's always good to test your work, make sure that works. And let's make a new shell. And there we go. We can say that we've got that inside. And in fact, what's cool about this is if I go back to this environment here and I make it a little bit bigger, I have a make-file that has a bunch of installation steps inside. Pretty easy. I just say make all. And this will actually, we'll first have to change into the code, which is assimilate, and I can just say make all. And this will install all my software. It's really just like a one-step process once I've got the virtual environment set up. And then I can run, Python scripts. I can play around with code. And so it's really like a nice mixture of different environments. I can start with GitHub, right? Get that working. I can do key things inside of Cloudshell. And then I can also do things inside of Cloud9. Just really depends on what it is I'm doing. But because GitHub it can be connected to all of them, it's pretty trivial to actually set things up. And look, in this particular environment here, if I want to run, for example, that S3 tool I wrote earlier, Python S3 manager, see that it works, right? And I can also tell it to look for empty buckets, right? So we've got a great uniform workflow here between these three environments. I could also make the Cloudshell environment talk to my bucket, talk to my code as well by just using the SSH keys. But we got this thing working. We're good to go. So the next step that I'll do is I'm going to create a Docker file next here. Now in this Docker file, what I would need to do is just figure out something useful to build. Now, probably building something that I already have is maybe even the easiest approach to actually building something. So one of the things that we could do is I could actually look at a previous Docker file that I have, and I could copy that, or I could just start it from scratch. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use maybe like an example Docker file that has maybe Python installed. So let's look for like Python, Docker, AWS, and let's see if there's any good examples here. Container images for Python, Docker, AWS development. Is there kind of a good Docker file I could find somewhere? Maybe even AWS has one. Yeah, maybe this. Maybe let's look at this. Dockerizing in Python from Ubuntu. We probably would want to look at a more of an official one if possible. I don't think so. Let's see. Python, Docker, AWS, example, Boto 3. Docker file. Running Boto 3 inside of Docker. Here we go. Boto 3. Let's see if I look for Boto 3 Docker. Boto 3 AWS Docker. Example. Find one. I don't know if I find an official. Maybe. Here we go. So we have. Let's look at this. We have an official one from Amazon base images for Python. Let's see if we can find one. I don't know if I necessarily want a Lambda, but I for sure. I mean, this could work, but I want to see if I can find one that's like even this AWS CLI could be good. But is there one for Boto 3 though that I could just use? Let's see here. Can I search in here? I can search for Amazon Boto 3. Find one. Amazon Linux, ECS. I don't see like a really good Python version. But what we could do is probably use Amazon Linux, which is probably good enough, and I just put Python inside of there. So I think I'll start with that. So let's try that. Let's let's build something that uses Amazon Linux. And let's see if we have an Amazon Linux example that I can use. I probably just need to say Amazon Linux. And I think I have an example in a repo here that I can take a look at. So let's go to here and let's look at Beanstalk maybe. Elastic Beanstalk. Let's see this. What do I use to have a Docker file? Or is there might even be a fast API. Let's try here. Let's look at the Docker file. So I think I can do something like this probably. So let's try that. Let's just roughly mimic. Let's mimic something, something similar to this, and let's go back to this environment. Let's look at the Docker file, and I'll just tweak it a little bit. And so we'll go here. Now I don't want to do that one. I want to change it to be Amazon Linux. And let's go back to here. We want to do Amazon Linux, like that. And this looks, we don't need to necessarily expose anything. If we have an application I want to copy, maybe we copy the S3 manager instead. So we would copy S3 manager like that. UI, let's try that. And we don't, I think, even need to make an entry point. But what I can do is go back to, I have a Docker example here, and Docker hello world. Just look at a few different Dockers that I have. Or container could be another one. No, container. Container. Look at this. Container from scratch. This might be better. If I look at this Docker file, so what do I do here? So I copy an app. I get all this working. And if I look at what I'm copying, the app is just a command line tool. That's like a really simple command line tool. So I think this is probably what I want. Something kind of like this, which is that I make a work directory and I copy this into the work directory. So let's just make sure that I'm doing something like this. And if I go back here, let's see, that looks correct. And then see what I had before. So I don't need any of this at all, in fact. Copy this first to directory afterwards. So yeah, we'll do this afterwards like this. That looks pretty good. So I think that's all I need. And again, if I look at this other example here, close that one, close that one. This is just a very simple command line tool. Yeah, this looks pretty good. It's exactly what I want. And I'm assuming that Amazon Linux will have Python already installed on it, I think. And so I don't really need to do anything. So to build this, I would just need to type in docker build dot that. See how, now, because this is a powerful environment, it should be pretty quick. So pip is not installed, which is not a good sign. So that could make things a little bit more difficult. So what could we do to, we need to find something that's slightly more different. And I could look for Amazon. It'd be nice if I could find a better image here. So we have Amazon. Now, can I look by vendor? So we want to do Linux, and we want to do verified publisher, Docker official image, verified publisher, and then we want to look at x86-64. And I'm going to see if I can find one that would be a good kind of general purpose. Here we go. This looks promising here. What is this one? AWS SAM. This builds on top of Lambda. I wonder if this would work. Docker pull. AWS. This might actually work for me. And so I would just say this, I believe. I always get the syntax incorrect. Would I say this, or I say from AWS? Let's try that. Docker build doesn't exist. Would I need to put Amazon in front? So I might be just screwing up the syntax. Oh, okay. Maybe that's all I got to do is put this. I always get this confused here. Does that work? Okay, now we're running, building our container based on the SAM CLI build image, which I'm assuming would be a very interactive kind of image. And we can even see how much um, horsepower this is using if I wanted to run the top command. It's a good sign though that it's installing stuff. So this could be a good base to build command line tools with. And there's a lot of stuff I'm installing in this image. Okay, even though red is a bad color, it doesn't say it just says warning. There we go. So now how would I know what to do? Well, I could type in Docker image ls. We can see that that's the image that was created. Now I have to look at again my documentation, and I would just say something like this. I would say Docker run, and I believe just the name of the image ID. That. There you go. So now I'm inside of this image, and notice that if I type in, well, it's kind of hard to know that I'm in a different image, but basically I should be able to run some other tool. So if I type in Python, we know Python 3.8's there, and we could actually run Python S3 manager like that, and we could see if it works. There you go. So it does work. So what this means is kind of cool is that we have a process now to package stuff into a container, um, and build it and push it places. So really the next step then is let's verify that I can run the command line tool in there. So I would say this, and let me look again, look at my documentation, run, and then I would do Python, something like this. So I would say do that, do Python, and then I'm going to double check that application that's inside of there can run like this, and we can do dash help. Does this work? Yeah. So this is perfect. This is running from inside of the container itself. This is not running from locally. So to make things less confusing, what I can do really quickly here is build a new tool very quickly, kind of like a Hello World container, and push it into Amazon's container registry. So in order to do that, we could just go through here real quick, and we could just say ECR, and we could right click and say create repository, and we'll make a new repository. We'll call this AWS CLI. So let's go ahead and build a new repository and enter it. There we go. So now that I got this is pretty slick. Is that, look, you could even create app runner services, copy the repository URI, copy the ARN, or I can just go to it myself, and I can actually go to the console, and I could look at all the services here, and we can look at CR services, and look at ECR, our container registry, this one. And in fact, there it is. There's the new container registry I created. And so we can even view these push commands. Now, to make things a little bit more interesting, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this environment. I'm going to make a new command line tool. This new command line tool, what it will do is it'll list the current Cloud9 environments. So let's call this one Cloud9.py. right? So this will be what the tool will do. And let's just really quickly say import boto3, and we'll say import click, and we'll say build out a click group. That's right. And for AWS Cloud9, we go. And so we want to build a function. We want to say build a function that lists and describes lists all Cloud9 environments. Go. And this just lists the Cloud9 environments. And then we'll have another function that says build a function that describes them. Describes a Cloud9 environment. There we go. So this is perfect. This is exactly what I want. Now that we've got this, let's actually build out a tool that can actually use either one. So now let's say we'll say lists. This one will list the environments. There we go. But let's print them with color. So print using click colors. Okay, so we want to do that, make them a little bit pretty. And then we want to add another one, which is describe, and it's going to take an environment ID exactly and describe the environment. Perfect. And then let's just invoke it. So let's run it as a command line tool. So let's first double check that it works. So we'll go ahead and we'll chmod it here. So we'll go user bin env python. There we go. And then we'll also make it executable. And now if we go to Cloud9, we do help. You can say describe, then it should describe all the Cloud9 environments. Or no, it's list. We'll list all the environments. Perfect. And then we just grab one of them and we say describe. Perfect. Awesome. I can describe and list my environments. So here's where we would create the Docker file now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say touch Docker file. And I'm going to put in that information that's similar to what I had in the other repo, but a little bit different. A little bit different, but similar. So here we'll do this. We'll say that looks good, but instead of the S3 one, I want to copy Cloud9 in there. So I want to copy Cloud9. Cloud9. Right. And this will basically put this, although it'll copy everything, so I don't need to explicitly put the Cloud9 in there because I think it'll copy everything that's in my directory. But just so I have it explicit, we've got that running. Now all I have to do is run those commands from the container registry. So I'm going to go ahead and say copy this. Because the keys are on the system, this should work. I've never tried it before, but there we go. And then we go to the next one, which is let's build the container. So we'll go through here. Let's build it. Great. This is also a very powerful machine, so it should build it very, very quickly. And I'm going to slide this over here. Right. So it's basically going to build a container that I'm going to push to the container registry for Amazon. All right, let's let this thing go. You can see here at the bottom, it's showing that it's using how much of the CPU it's using. So this is a pretty powerful environment. There we go. It's copying the data over. It's running pip install. There's a lot of installation steps to do. Okay, still cranking here. Looks like it's almost done. So it's looking pretty good that I can actually containerize this new tool that I wrote. And okay, perfect. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the next command, which is this one, which is tag it. And then the final command, which is to push it. Okay, let's push this container. There we go. And it's definitely spending some horsepower. Look, it's spending 33% of a 16 core machine to to push it to Amazon. And the beautiful thing about this is that now I can take this image that I packaged up on this machine and I can run it somewhere else. So I can push it to somebody on my team, or I could build a web service, I could build a job, whatever it is I need to do. Once you've containerized it, it's good to go and everything's ready for you. All right, so it's pushed. Now, to use it, all I need to do is kind of reverse the steps that I did before. So if I copy this, the login, I can go to Cloud9 and I can just do that. I can just say login, right? So now it logged me in. And what all I need to do now is basically do a Docker pull instead of a Docker push. So I can copy this into my environment here, and I can just say Docker pull to see what happens. There you go. So it's able to actually talk to that environment. Great. And now if I type in Docker image ls, there's the command line tool that I just built. And I can jump inside of it if I want. So I can say Docker run IT and just jump in that. Yep, there we go. And look, we see all the code that's in there. In fact, even the new one, right? Because look, that doesn't exist on this machine, right? There's no Cloud9, right? So I can tell that's one way to run it, but I can even run it even easier, because what I can do is that I can run by saying Python. I can say cloud9.py, right? So I can evoke it directly inside of um, my container. There we go. Now I just go through here and I just say list all the environments. Now this one is giving me an issue because it's asking me to specify a region, um, which isn't horrible. All I would need to do is inside of this particular piece of code specify a particular region via a variable, I believe. And so I could say something like, well, to make it easy is let's just do this. Let's just say Docker run, and I could say export, and let's just look at the variable and just say Docker region or AWS region export. Let's just export this. Here we go. So we'll just export this. So I'm in here, and we're just going to make this US East one. because that's where my stuff is. And then I can just do the same thing. I can just do Python cloud9 dash dash help, and say list. It's all the cloud9 environments. Able to locate credentials. I guess in this particular environment, I'm not sure why the credentials are not being passed in, but regardless, we know that the code works, right? We can solve that problem in a different way. But the main thing is that yes, I was able to run a command line tool that I put remotely. Maybe that would be a good thing to solve in a second issue, is to make sure that I can execute the code no matter where I live. But in a nutshell, mission accomplished. We got a new command line tool working in a new environment. So that's one of the reasons why the containers are nice, is that you can transport things from one environment to the other. And then if I want to go to the registry here and I look inside of here and I refresh it, we see that that container lives in this new location. Now, the big takeaway as well with ECR and why people use it is that, and it even hinted inside of AWS, is that, look, you can create an app runner service which is continuously deployed directly from a container that's put inside of there, which means that you can do continuous delivery of microservices. So that's really the big takeaway. First, I think building a command line tool is a great way to kind of kick the tires. But then the second thing to do is, okay, now once I've got that, can I actually build a service with AWS App Runner? All right, that's a good lesson for today. I'm going to sign off and see you next week.